Hello everyone, and welcome back to English Corridor. Today is July 27th, 2026, and I'm truly happy that you're here. Find a comfortable place, relax, and enjoy today's English story. Remember, you don't need to understand every word. Just keep listening. Little by little, your English will become stronger. Today's story is called I Took the Wrong Train and Found My Dream Job. Let's begin. Underscore 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 underscore. People often believe that success comes from having the perfect plan. But sometimes, life has a completely different idea. 3 years ago, I was living in Boston and working as a customer service representative for a large retail company. The job paid my bills, but that was about all it did. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise, made a quick breakfast, checked my emails, and hurried to the subway station with hundreds of other commuters. The station was always crowded. People walked quickly without making eye contact. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. Everyone except me. I wasn't lost physically. I was lost emotionally. At 28 years old, I had a stable job, a small apartment, and enough money to live comfortably. Yet every evening, I went home with the same feeling. Something was missing. Whenever friends asked how work was going, I always gave the same answer. It's fine. But deep inside, I knew fine wasn't the life I wanted. One Monday morning, everything changed because of one tiny mistake. I was reading an article on my phone while walking down the station stairs. Without paying attention, I stepped onto the wrong platform. A train arrived just seconds later. The doors opened. People rushed inside. I followed them automatically. I found an empty seat near the window and continued reading my article. About 15 minutes later, I looked outside. Nothing looked familiar. The buildings were different. The neighborhoods were different. Even the announcements sounded unfamiliar. My heart started beating faster. I checked the subway map above the door. I froze. I wasn't on my usual train. I had boarded the wrong line. Instead of heading toward downtown Boston, I was traveling in the opposite direction. I let out a quiet sigh. This is going to be a terrible day. When the train stopped at the next station, I stepped outside, planning to catch the next train back. Then something caught my attention. Just across the street stood a beautiful old brick building with a sign that read, Boston Creative Innovation Center. I had never heard of it before. People carrying cameras, laptops, sketchbooks, and coffee cups walked in and out of the building. There was energy in the air. Excitement. Curiosity. It felt completely different from the office towers I saw every day. I checked the time. If I left now, I would still arrive at work only 30 minutes late. For some reason, instead of returning to the station, I crossed the street. The lobby was bright, modern, and full of conversation. People were discussing business ideas, design projects, podcasts, photography, and technology. Everyone looked busy. But nobody looked unhappy. Near the reception desk, I noticed a poster. Open Career Networking Day, free admission today. I couldn't believe it. The event was happening only because I had taken the wrong train. I hesitated. Should I go inside? Or should I leave immediately before my manager noticed I was late? Sometimes life gives you only a few seconds to make a decision. I took a deep breath. Then I walked through the doors. Inside, dozens of small companies had set up booths. Entrepreneurs greeted visitors with friendly smiles. Recruiters answered questions. Young professionals exchanged ideas. The atmosphere felt alive. It didn't feel like work. It felt like possibility. As I wandered through the exhibition hall, one small booth caught my eye. Unlike the others, it had no large banners. No flashy decorations. Only one simple sign. Storybridge Media. Behind the table sat a woman in her early 40s, typing on a laptop while sipping coffee. She looked up and smiled. First time here. Is it that obvious? I asked with a nervous laugh. She smiled. Only the first-timers spend more time looking around than walking. I introduced myself. She introduced herself as Emma. What brings you here? She asked. I laughed. The wrong train. She raised an eyebrow. That's one of the best reasons I've heard all morning. We both laughed. Then she asked a question I wasn't expecting. If money didn't matter, what kind of work would make you excited to wake up every morning? I opened my mouth to answer. But just like that, I realized I had never seriously asked myself that question. Emma didn't repeat the question. She simply waited. For a few seconds, the busy room around us seemed to disappear. I could still hear people talking, chairs moving, and coffee machines steaming in the background, but my attention stayed on one simple question. What kind of work would make you excited to wake up every morning? I smiled awkwardly. I honestly don't know. Emma nodded. That's okay. Most people don't. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. Can I ask you something else? Of course. When you were a child, what did you love doing before anyone told you what success was supposed to look like? The question surprised me. Nobody had asked me about my childhood in a job conversation before. I thought for a moment. I loved telling stories. Emma's eyes lit up. Stories? I laughed. Yeah. In school, I was always the one writing long essays. I loved reading books, making up characters, and imagining different endings. My teachers used to tell me I should become a writer. So what happened? I looked down at the floor. Life happened. College became expensive. Bills arrived. My parents wanted me to choose a stable career. Writing felt risky. So I studied business instead. Emma smiled kindly. That happens more often than you think. She reached into a small box on her table and handed me a card. It wasn't a business card. On the front, it said, "Your dream job rarely begins with your dream title." I read it twice. What does that mean? I asked. It means many people spend years waiting for the perfect opportunity, Emma explained. But the people who succeed usually start with small opportunities. They keep learning, improving, and showing up until one day everyone calls them an overnight success. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. For years, I had been waiting for confidence before trying something new. Maybe confidence came after taking the first step. Emma glanced at my watch. Aren't you supposed to be at work? I laughed. I definitely am. So why are you still here? I don't know. She smiled. I think you do. Just then, a man carrying a camera walked up to the booth. Emma, we're starting the content workshop in 5 minutes. She looked back at me. You should join us. I'm not supposed to be here. Neither were you this morning, she said with a grin. Remember? You took the wrong train. I laughed. She had a point. I sent a quick message to my manager explaining that I had experienced a transportation problem and would arrive later than expected. Technically, that wasn't a lie. I walked into the workshop room with about 30 other people. Some were college students. Others were business owners. A few looked close to retirement. Everyone had come for the same reason. To learn. The speaker stood at the front of the room holding nothing more than a marker. He didn't begin with statistics. He didn't show flashy slides. Instead, he wrote one sentence on the whiteboard. People remember stories. They forget information. Then he turned toward us. Every successful company tells stories. Every successful leader tells stories. Every successful teacher tells stories. And every successful person learns how to communicate clearly. For the next hour, I listened more carefully than I had listened to anything in years. The speaker explained how stories connect people emotionally. Facts inform. Stories inspire. Facts are remembered for a short time. Stories can be remembered for decades. I thought about my own life. I couldn't remember most of the presentations I had attended at work. But I could still remember bedtime stories my grandmother had told me 20 years earlier. By the end of the workshop, something inside me had changed. Not because I suddenly knew exactly what to do. But because I realized I had stopped learning long ago. Before leaving, Emma handed me another piece of paper. This is a free evening writing course we organize every Thursday. I looked at the schedule. It started the following week. I don't know if I'm good enough, I admitted. Emma smiled. You don't need to be good enough. You only need to be willing enough.